Greetings from the DinoZone. So today's topic is Brachiosaurus. So if I was the leader of a rock band, I would call it Brachiosaurus and the Sauropods. And we wouldn't make any silly jokes about the Hard Rock Cafe. We would make sure that we rock on down to the dawn of the Paleogene while the lights go out elsewhere. Right, so let's get down to business. So this is my Brachiosaurus, made by Schleich, the German dinosaur manufacturers. Look at this fantastic creature. So we're going to talk about Brachiosaurus today. He is a sauropod dinosaur. So sauropods were those long-necked, long-tailed, huge creatures that had 4 legs and which grew to enormous sizes. In fact, the largest land animals that ever lived were sauropods. But that's material for another video. So today we're going to focus on one particular species, and that's Brachiosaurus altithorax. So Brachiosaurus is a sauropod dinosaur that lived in the late Jurassic in North America. So that's the US and southern Canada. If you're not aware, the Jurassic is one of the great geological time periods, sandwiched between the Triassic and the Cretaceous. And all those 3 periods make up the Mesozoic, which means middle life. So Jurassic, we all know about that. It's had lots of airtime thanks to all those movies that have been rolling out for the last 30 years. So it's Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous, and they make up the Mesozoic. So the Mesozoic started 252 million years ago and ended with the extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. So the Jurassic started about 201 million years ago and stretched through to 145 million years ago, and then the Cretaceous began. So if we haven't met before, my name is Gerald Davey and I head up the DinoZone. I am the Dino Man. So it's my job to bring dinosaurs and the Mesozoic world to life for you. You better smash those like buttons and subscribe buttons because your life might depend on it. And while you're about it, click that notification button. And share this video with people who you know who might want to know more about dinosaurs. And of course, please leave your comments below. I want to hear what floats your boat, what you want to know about dinosaurs and paleontology and the Mesozoic, and I want to hear what you have to say about this video. All suggestions are welcome, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And stick around to the end because I'm going to give you a freebie, so look out for that. So the first Brachiosaurus was found by Elmer Riggs in 1900 in the Colorado River Valley in western Colorado at a place which is now known as Riggs Quarry or Riggs Hill. And you can go and visit that place. There's a plaque marking where they dug up Brachiosaurus. So if you want to go and have a look, off you go. If you get there first, send us a picture. You will be famous. So being a paleontologist, Elmer Riggs took on the job of not only discovering it, but naming it and describing it. So those bones come from the Morrison Formation, that veritable treasure trove of dinosaur bones. And if you look at an outline of the Morrison Formation, where the rock outcrops, it really occupies or covers a vast amount of central USA, mid-central United States, and it stretches up into southern Canada. So an amazing, amazing treasure trove of dinosaurs. And we'll make a video about that too, talking about the animals, the flora and fauna that came out of the Morrison Formation. So our Brachiosaurus, our first Brachiosaurus, and all the rest of the ones that have been discovered there come out of this amazing formation that's provided so many dinosaur bones over the years. So here's an image which I overlay over Google Earth. Roughly, it's not very accurate, showing the lateral extent of the Morrison Formation. And as you can see, it occupies a vast expanse of North America, stretching from central USA up into Canada. So the bones, so they say, were discovered on the 4th of July, 1900. And they dug them up at a rapid rate. I'm not so sure if they would do that nowadays. I think they would spend more time on the dig, as they would look very closely at the geology and the environment in which this animal lived and died. But anyway, they dug that thing up. So the 4th of July it was discovered. And I think by the 17th of August of that same year, the last bone was jacketed in plaster. And now the next job was to get them home to Chicago. Remember that the infrastructure wasn't as well developed as it is now. Anyway, they lugged 5.7 tons of dinosaur bones down to the railway line, down to the railway, depending on where you are. And the railroad companies gave them a free ticket back to Chicago. So Riggs, his team, and the dinosaur bones got a freebie all the way back to the Field Museum. And back in the laboratory, Riggs had the job of cleaning up the bones, describing them, drawing them, documenting them, and then coming up with a name for this dinosaur. So when he came to describe this animal, he noted that the humerus, the front forelimb, and the femur were much longer in the front of the animal, on the forelimbs, than they were on the hind limbs. And that caused the shoulder to be much higher than the hips. And that led to this thing having a sloping body. The trunk was inclined, as you can see here. So he called this animal Brachiosaurus, which means brachio is arms in Latin and Italian. Embrace, there's a word. When you hold someone in your arms, you embrace them. So Brachiosaurus means arms, and the saurus means lizard. So Brachiosaurus. So it had this very deep chest, longer arms, forelegs, forelimbs, and shorter hind limbs. And then a short, stocky, muscular tail and a long neck. So Brachiosaurus altithorax, look at that. So Riggs also noted that the front shoulder was slightly splayed. And I take my hat off to Schleich, who made this. Look at these. They've got all the detail here. Look at this fantastic, slightly sprawled look they've got. So they really are paying attention to the detail when they make these fantastic models. That's why I love them. So sticking to the theme of this wonderful creature, it had the sloping body, the short muscular tail, 4 strong columnar legs, a long neck, a small head, that short muscular tail, and that inclined body. And here's another amazing fact. It actually had air sacs in its neck and its body, and they were connected to its lungs. So those air sacs made the animal much lighter, less dense in terms of its whole body weight. Birds also have those features. So those air sacs in the neck and the body kept the weight of this animal down. So really quite an amazingly well-developed, evolved creature. The neck was also long by sauropod standards, and there were a lot of sauropods in the Morrison Formation in the late Jurassic. So this guy was the winner in terms of the length of the neck. So it had a skull 81 centimeters long, some estimates, some say of 70 centimeters, but irrespective of that, it had the largest skull of any sauropod from the Morrison Formation. And there was no shortage of sauropods in the Morrison. So there was plenty of competition. And then it had 14 to 15 teeth on either side of its skull, which were used for plucking and sort of chewing vegetation off the high branches. But more of that later. It also had a problem with pumping blood from its body up to the top of its head to keep that brain working. Giraffes have long necks, and this thing pumped double the amount of blood that a giraffe had. And they estimate that its heart was 450 kilos. So that's a pretty big heart, and that's almost half the size of a small car. So that's an amazing thing. It was a high browser, so it plucked and cut vegetation off from the high branches as much as 9 meters above the ground, and it ate things like ginkgos, conifers, ferns, and large cycads. And it's estimated that this thing ate 400 kilos of vegetation a day. That's a lot of biomass to process. Brachiosaurus was thought to be cold-blooded, but there are theories coming to the fore now that it is warm-blooded, but now there's some debate because some researchers think that if it was warm-blooded, due to its size, it would actually overheat. So the jury's still out on that. We touched on this earlier. Brachiosaurus is only known from the Morrison Formation of Western North America. Any good paleontologist needs to understand the environment in which this animal lived. So looking at the rocks, which are essentially time capsules of what was going on back in the day, it would appear that the Morrison Formation was a semi-arid environment with floodplains and flash floods and a distinct wet and dry season. And Brachiosaurus, discovered by Riggs, part of that animal was found in mud, which had been preserved and turned into shale. And the neck of the creature was lying in sandstones, which would indicate higher energy environments. So it's been interpreted that the low energy environment, the muds, the animal died in the mud, but there was a flash flood and part of the neck was carried away and part of the neck was still stuck in this river channel, which is full of sand, which then turned into sandstone. So that's why it's important to pay attention to the environment in which the animal lived, because you can draw all sorts of conclusions about how it lived, how it died, the geology, the climate, the paleoclimate as they call it. All right, so that's where they found this creature, half in mud, half in sand, and interpreting the environment in which it lived from the geological record. That's why I mentioned earlier it was a little bit of a worry when they dug this thing up between the 4th of July and the 17th of August in 1 year. I don't know if people were paying that much attention to the environment in which it actually lived. But times have changed now. 120 years later, in fact, it's 120 years this year since this animal was named by Riggs. So Riggs only found about 20% of the bones of this fantastic creature. So he had to draw all sorts of inferences as to the shape and the morphology of it. So the majority of the bones were lost, probably by those fast-flowing rivers, the flash floods, the scavengers out there on the Jurassic landscape. And the bones also disintegrate in the sun and the heat and the rain. So 20% were recovered, and Riggs had to infer what this animal looked like. So a large skeleton that we do expect to see in all these museums was never put on display. All the bones were just put in glass cabinets and were exhibited at the Field Museum. But then in 1993, they did put together a dinosaur, a Brachiosaur, based on bones that were discovered a world away in the Tendaguru Formation in Tanzania. So in the early 20th century, the Germans, it was then German East Africa, part of the German Empire, the Germans ran some expeditions out there and they hauled home a pile of bones. And the initial name for what is now Giraffatitan was Brachiosaurus branchi. So they discovered a creature that looked very, very similar to Brachiosaurus altithorax. So those two creatures are so closely related. So the model of Brachiosaurus altithorax that now sits in outside the Field Museum in Chicago is based on models that were made and molded of Brachiosaurus branchi, which is now Giraffatitan, renamed. And that animal lives in the Natural History Museum in Berlin, in Germany. And Brachiosaurus altithorax, the original bones are sitting in the Field Museum in Chicago, and there's a model outside the museum. And there's also a model in Terminal B on the main concourse in the O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. So I think that's a fantastic place for a model of a reproduction, a full-size reproduction of a Brachiosaurus. What geniuses these people are, hey? You just go through the airport and there's a massive dinosaur. I wish we could have that everywhere. But I see others have done that. I see in the Emirates there's a dinosaur there. So I'm looking forward to all the shopping malls and all the airports working on getting a dinosaur in their concourses. O'Hare International Airport led the way. Well done, Chicago. I'll have to make another video on the Tendaguru and that German expedition. Wow, there's so many videos to be made. We'll be drowning at work. But hey, it's going to be fun, hey? You're going to learn so much about dinosaurs and see where they were all dug up and who dug them up and what was dug up and the museums where they currently reside. I don't know what else to say. You have to say dinosaurs reside in a museum. They are living things. They've been dead for at least 66 million years, but wow, we get excited and think that, and those museums have brought them back to life. So why can't we say, hey, they reside or live in these fantastic museums? So that complete dinosaur, when I say complete, that complete dinosaur was put on display in 1999 in the Stanley Field Hall in the Field Museum in Chicago. And then it was displaced by Sue, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So here's my T-Rex. We spoke about him last week. Maybe we should say we spoke about her last week, but I called him him. So Tyrannosaurus Rex, the grumpy guy with a bad attitude. So Sue is the largest and most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex ever found. So she was put on display in that Stanley Field Hall, displacing our Brachiosaurus. Anyway, I believe that Sue's also been moved out of there, so I'm not sure who's or what has been put into that space, but I'll do some research and come back to you on that one. So if you want to know more about Sue, I'll put the link below so you can learn about Sue, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the largest and most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex ever found. So if you want one of these dinosaurs, head on over to our shop at the DinoZone and grab yourself one, especially these Schleich ones and Collector. Those guys are paying attention to the detail, like that slightly splayed shoulder joint. So well done. So if you want one for your collection, they are collector's items, so head on over. We've got a whole bunch of them. We've seen T-Rex already galloping across the landscape. We've got ceratopsians also galloping across the landscape. Some from the Morrison Formation, others from elsewhere. So Brachiosaurus sharehead that's whirled with other sauropods. Apatosaurus, Barosaurus, Diplodocus, Supersaurus, Camarasaurus, and Haplocanthosaurus. That's a big name. And then the predators of the Morrison Formation were Ceratosaur, Ornitholestes, Allosaurus, and Torvosaurus. But we'll make another video of the flora and fauna of the Morrison Formation at a later stage. It really is quite an amazing story. So back to the freebie I promised. There's a free colouring book. So if you follow the link below, you can download a colouring in book, which we normally sell at the DinoZone, but for you today we're giving away for free. So if you click on the link, you go to the website and download that fantastic book. It's going to be hours and hours and hours of creative fun as you can paint the Jurassic, Triassic, Cretaceous, any color you want. So paleontologists really do struggle to work out what the colors are of some of these creatures. So you can splash color across the Jurassic and no one's going to be saying, well, that's not what it looked like. The world is yours. So that brings us to the end of our little video of Brachiosaurus, one of the largest sauropods of the Jurassic from the Morrison Formation. So if you want one of these creatures, head on over to the dinosaur shop. Please follow the links below. Get the free colouring in book. Come and visit us at the DinoZone if you're physically close by. Please leave your comments. And hey, smash that like button and smash that subscribe button, just like a meteorite smashed into planet Earth 66 million years ago. If you don't do that, you might go extinct. Or fate worse than death, you might have a boring, sad life, deprived of dinosaurs. Alright, so I'm out of here. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.